Gonna revisit this. I'll tell you what, I have not seen as much movement when it comes to the NFL that I've seen over the last couple weeks, and a lot of movement has been going on. And by the way, the Cowboys, like we said with Jason Cole last week, Pro Football Hall of Fame voter, our NFL insider, we were talking about what's Dallas doing. And I want to bring Jason up here now with us. And Jace, thanks so much for doing it. Today,
Sure.
going in 2024 season, would you take Dak or would you take Jalen Hurts as your quarterback?
Wow. Jalen Hurts.
Why?
I think there's a little bit more upside at this point. I think we haven't reached the ceiling for Jalen Hurts. And so while last year was kind of a sideways kind of year for him, he wasn't great like he was the year before. He wasn't terrible either. I mean, there are flaws in his game. I think we know what Dak is at this point, right? Like we've seen the best and worst of Dak Prescott. And he was good last year. And I think that you can win a Super Bowl with Dak Prescott. Um, I know you can get to a Super Bowl, and really, Jalen Hurts was what this close to winning that Super Bowl. He's a tug of the shirt away from winning a Super Bowl. I just think that with Dak, I just continue to see the flaws, like in critical situations, third down and long situations, not coming up big enough in really big games. I just have those concerns still, and I'm not sure that he's ever going to solve that. He's always going to be a very good quarterback. He's Kirk Cousins in a lot of ways, which is good, not great.
How about this, though, Jace? Do you think that getting to a Super Bowl is overrated? Because someone here brought Rex Grossman's name up, and they went 14-2. And I'm not trying to compare Rex Grossman and Jalen, but it's a team and accomplishment. And so when people go, well, this guy got this, I mean, Colin Kaepernick got a football team. I'm not saying Colin was, I disagree with many people. I think the organization was falling apart under Trent Baalke, and especially after Harbaugh left, that whole thing went south. So
Well, if I could just get to your question, which is, look, there are times when the quarterback is responsible for how he runs the offense, and there are times that the quarterback is sort of along for the ride. Okay, Rex Grossman was along for the ride. He
he
made
was the
enough
caboose.
plays that right. He wasn't the guy driving the train, right? And we know that. But Jalen Hurts was a lot closer to driving the train that year and
He
being a
was.
critical part of that team. And that's what I give him credit for. But yes, there are qualitative things that you look at and you just say, yeah, like Brad Johnson with Tampa was never driving the train. Okay.
Never.
He won a Super Bowl and he played very well that season. He did what they needed him to do. But I can find with that in a lot of guys. I don't know that you can find a lot of what Jalen Hurts does in a lot of guys. Yeah, there are a few, but not a lot.
How about this one, Jace? And I brought this up yesterday. They're just different in their styles of play, and you just brought it up. Well, Brock Purdy has Ayuk, Debo, Kittle, McCaffrey. Jalen has AJ, Devontae, Goddard. Now he has Barkley and a better O-line. What's the difference in the two players? Both guys are reliant on a lot of stacked talent on their offense.
Yeah.
And when you take one of those guys off those teams, those guys don't look like the same player. I mean, Jalen Hurts in that playoff game against the Bucs, he was lost. And when I saw Purdy without Trent Williams against Cleveland even, and Josh Dobbs or whoever it was, they ended up beating that great Niner team. I mean, aren't they basically the same guy when it comes to what they deliver to their teams? Maybe in different ways, but aren't they the same guy that rely on the talent around them?
Well, every quarterback is.
Well, that's not true because I could go to Kansas City and Buffalo and go, those guys don't have anybody in their huddles.
Well, wait a sec. I mean, Kansas City still has Travis Kelce, and they still have a good
there's one
back.
guy. They got
all right,
there's six
wait.
Pro Bowlers, Jason.
Just let me make this point. There are some quarterbacks who have an ability to raise the level of the talent around them, but it still has to be requisite talent. Okay, it still has to be good enough. right? You can't overcome having you. You can't do dinner at Schmucks and expect to win, right? Okay, you just can't. You have to have quality guys, whether they're offensive linemen, tight end, a receiver or two. Some critical guys around you have to be there, right? So when you take talent away from Tom Brady at the end when he was in New England, guess what? They weren't a very good football team. All right, and they're completely bereft. If you take talent away from Peyton Manning, he's not going to be the same quarterback. That's why you always want to feed those guys with talented guys. When you look at Brock Purdy, there's a way that you have to protect him. We talked about this before. Like when Drew Brees was in New Orleans, what did they always make sure that they had? A really good center and two really good guards, and they got away with lesser talent at the tackles because they realized that area between the center and the quarterback, they needed to have Drew Brees be able to step up into that area and throw, and they had to keep it clean, right? Same thing is kind of true with Brock Purdy. You got to keep the pocket clean with him. So the way that San Francisco does it, by running the ball a lot, making sure that they have Trent Williams over there, right? And they're going to upgrade their offensive line, here over the next few years and try and keep their talent together. So yeah, you got to have talent. Brock Purdy, however, you can say this definitively versus Jalen Hurts. His anticipation and ability to throw accurately is much better than Jalen Hurts. That's just his strength. But if Brock Purdy were to try and run some of the plays that Jalen Hurts tries to run, he can move okay, but he ain't going to be breaking tackles, right? Like it's just not. They're not the same.
Right, it's just a different skill set.
Right, that's all. All guys are not the same.
Isn't that the same in delivering the same results? So they're the same kind of. They bring the same thing to their teams.
The sum total of the parts is the same. Okay, and it's how you trick it up around them is look, that's the magic potion.
See, I brought this up and people got that. They're like, well, Brock Purdy and Hurts are not. Of course, I'm not saying that. I'm talking about what they bring by bringing out the players that they have in their huddle to be effective and help win games. They're the same guy. Because if you look at the skill set, it's almost even between the offense on the Philly team. And I would say this, maybe the Eagles have the advantage in the O-line. Shanahan is the trump on that when it comes to play calling because he's a head coaching play caller. And that's the difference where Sirianni's not.
Yeah,
that's the difference.
Right. And you can objectively say that Kyle Shanahan is one of the 3 or 4 best play callers in the entire NFL. Him and Andy
You're going to get pushback on that because I agree with you, but you're going to get pushback because you know why? He'll only be gauged by him winning a Super Bowl. But Jace, I'm going to say this to you. I don't think he wins a Super Bowl in San Francisco. I think he wins one, but I don't think he's going to win it in San Fran.
Well, we'll see about that. I have no idea how to respond.
Well, how long can you keep going with getting to the bar exam and not passing it?
I'm good with. I remember Jim Tomsula. I remember Chip Kelly.
Okay. You're bringing up the people like that kind of. All right.
I know.
You're bringing up the Mike Singletary kind of stuff. Okay. Right. By the way,
wait a sec. This is important. If you have a competent head coach who knows what he's doing, how to run a team, that has important value. Okay, like you got to keep fighting every year. And maybe sometime along the way, Kyle Shanahan will burn himself out. He won't be good enough. Sort of the way that Andy Reid and Jeff Lurie eventually ran out of patience with Andy Reid and moved on. But if you were to ask Jeff Lurie today, does he regret getting rid of Andy Reid to bring in Chip Kelly? What would you think his answer would be?
Of course, it would be yes. I think they regret getting rid of Doug Peterson.
Yeah, I mean, like sometimes you do things because you think this is not quite right. And it's like, the Steelers have the right idea here. Stay the course. Baltimore, is stay the course with your guys, have consistency with what you're doing. Because as soon as you start to fire people, right? It's like now you have all these battles and fiefdom, who controls what, who's running what show, and this and that. You have to have a consistent approach to win year in and year out. These are the kind of players we draft. This is the kind of coaching we have. This is the style of play we have. And yes, we may change the coaches, but we're staying with the philosophy.
Just a question here, kind of go off pace here a little bit. Would you take Shanahan or McVay? Who would you take?
Shanahan.
Come on, Jason.
I don't think McVay. Look, I'm just telling you this right now.
Oh my God, he's way more accomplished.
He's got one Super Bowl versus
two NFC championship wins and a Super Bowl. And he's not, great. And he's still the youngest coach or second youngest coach in the league.
And let me just tell you this: he was looking for a way out 2 years ago, and he's still looking for a way out.
I think he's been rejuvenated because they got a. Wait a minute, look at this. They got
whatever.
Holy cow! You're not. Wait, you're a Niner fan. You're not a Rams fan.
No, I am. I grew up a Rams fan. I'm not a Niners fan. I grew up a Rams fan.
They got
I'm not a fan of anybody. Money. I'm not a fan of anybody anymore because that's just the nature of the beast. And when the Rams left town, I said, enough. When they went to St. Louis, and just coming back to LA was not enough. But
was it a tiki barber? You're dead to me.
Kinda. It was more of a Chaz Palminteri Bronx Tale. You're dead to me. Okay, it's a little more of that, which you understand. Okay, you know what that is.
Well, yes, of course I would understand.
You live that life. You know.
Forget about it, guy. I get it.
He's gone. He's gone with nothing we could do. He was gone.
Absolutely.
But I mean, look, I have great appreciation for Sean McVay. I love the guy. But I don't think he's in it for the long haul. I think he's a burnout waiting to happen.
You think he's a younger version of Madden?
I think he's a younger version of Dick Vermeil. I mean, look at this life. When a guy says, I look forward to having, what's a life like? What does a life look like if I have kids and I want to go do things with them and I want to spend time with them? When he's talking philosophically about those kinds of things, I don't blame him at all. We should all, go do that. If that's what you really, really want to have in your life is, Saturdays going to your kid's soccer game, or during the week driving your kids to practice, and you've accomplished what you've accomplished, go do it. That's a great thing. Go be a great dad. And understand coaching is not for everybody. It's not a sane lifestyle for a lot of people. And I think that he's thought about that a lot. It goes through his head. And I'm not sure again, if the price had been right from some of these networks, he'd be gone already.
Yeah. I agree. Hey, I want to expand on one thing we brought up last week. And I'm going to ask you this because we just brought the Rams up. I'll get back to the NFC here in a second. But on Aaron Donald and his retirement, 10 years, would you agree that his 10 years, maybe not so much in the championship winning of Joe Green, but those two guys dominated the defensive tackle position like no other in their decade had ever dominated because I can't think of another guy other than Green.
Well, Sapp.
That would
Sapp
be
for a shorter period.
Sapp does not mean Joe Green.
No, he's not. He's closer to Aaron Donald in terms of skill set, right?
Because I happen to think Mean Joe's the greatest defensive tackle of all time.
Again, a lot of it is rules of engagement too. I mean, people don't really understand that. They just think,
it's so important,
right? It's like when
think about it, Jason. Look, in the first part of Joe Green's career, offensive linemen weren't allowed to extend their hands,
correct,
and grab guys. They were more here and had to keep them close to the chest. That was early part of his career when he got to Pittsburgh. Right. And like you said, that may look like nothing to the average fan, but when you get to extend your hands and you get to manipulate the grabbing more, that's where you're going to have more issues, because back then I mean, it was the old style, like you and I, when we
Yeah.
were kids, you're going like this kind of stuff.
And
And
you
when
can't,
you
you don't
extend
even
them,
really open. You don't even open your hands, right?
right?
Look,
Exactly. I
Joe.
mean, you were forced to keep your, so the subtle things you're talking about are totally important when you're evaluating a guy's career. And it's so hard to do that generationally.
Right. I would just say Joe Green was a dominant player in an era of when the game was really a truly line of scrimmage game,
And
uh,
physical.
and, and incredibly physical, and was a guy who was to never be messed with. Like was a complete force of nature. Aaron Donald, like Warren Sapp, you didn't fear them from they're going to beat my ass, right? Like that's not what you thought was going to happen with them. But they were going to do things that you couldn't account for in an era where the game is more spread out. It allows you to, focus on quickness, and being able to move through the line. And then can you hold up enough when people want to run straight at you? Like you can't be completely lightweight at defensive tackle.
You do get more pass rush opportunities in today's game than he
Right.
did.
You're playing more forward, but there are going to be times when people are going to take you on, right, in today's game. And those guys were good enough to hold up against that. Not the way that Joe Green did, because he was just such a force of nature and the nature of the game. So, yes, I would say Aaron Donald. Is he better than Warren Sapp? Yes. He was more consistent over the entire length of his career as opposed to Warren, which we talked about before. Great at Tampa, cashed out in Oakland.
Yeah, the back end of that, like you said, he played when he wanted to when he was with the Raiders. Let me slide back over to the NFC here. As we're looking prior to the draft here, again, free agency 2 weeks out here. We're 2 weeks out of it now. 49ers, Lions, Packers, Cowboys, Eagles, top five. That sound right?
Yeah, I would say that. That's about right.
The
Well, I mean,
Cowboys
you said
now.
what?
The Cowboys, are you concerned with them this offseason so far?
The only thing that concerns me is the stuff that Pollard and Dalton Schultz have talked about, which have just further exposed the. It's the truth. I mean, it's like it's a soap opera. It's not about winning. It's a soap opera. Everything is said. Like, are people eventually going to get how disingenuous the Cowboys really are about this whole thing? It's not about winning. It's
What does
about
all in mean?
it's a soundbite.
I mean,
Doesn't
see,
mean
do
anything.
you think that Jerry looks at it like this in his career? That he raised the value of the team since he bought it from Bumbright. He won 3 Super Bowls. And when you write the story, you can't write the story without him having 3 Super Bowls and the importance of him raising the value, help raise the value of the league, the TV contracts. So I wonder what the priority really is when it comes to winning that last game of the year. Or is it more about what people say, that he loves the fact that it's the highest rated television show every year on TV,
Uh,
and that his whole story, when you write it, you have to put all of it in the winning early
uh,
and all what he did for the league.
I don't know if you even
Because I think he's
prioritize.
resigned to winning a championship.
Yeah,
Like you
but he's
said,
not.
Jason, all in is talk.
Yeah, it's just blah blah blah. It's just words. It's not. It's not. It's like a politician. He's just saying words that are empty. And so, like, what does it really mean? I have no idea. What's their biggest move this offseason? They re-signed their long snapper. Like
And,
that's all they've
and,
done.
and wait, whoa, no. They restructured Dax Steele to give him $4 million off. Now it's only a $55.5 million hit on the
Well,
cap
but you know
instead
what
of a
I'm you
59.
right. You understand what I'm saying. Like there's nothing that's really happened with this team, and
That
they
was a
have
nothing
holes.
burger restructure.
Right. So I guess I'm just sitting here going, it's the same old Cowboys. Now, Jerry, I know somewhere in there, Jerry wants to believe that he's this great football man. He's going to win a championship, but the default is always, "But I'm rich, and I did this, and I made this kind of money." That's his thing. That's his highest priority. Again, I come back to that story, about him talking about what coaches made and him going, "That wasn't enough." It's always been about the money for Jerry. It's not about the glory of winning. Okay. He talks about the glory of winning because that helps him make the money and sell the product. But at the end of the day, the priority is always about the money. It's not necessarily about the winning. And if it was about the winning, he would have figured it out by now.
Jason, I want to throw this at you here. It looks like the Eagles are going to play the Browns in the opener down in Sao Paulo in Brazil. DeShaun Watson, quarterback, Nick Chubb, running back, Amari Cooper, wide out, Jerry Jeudy, wide out, Elijah Moore, wide out, and David Njoku, tight end. You got one of the better old lines in the NFL. You got the number one defense in the league. I mean, it's time to do some things in Cleveland now, ain't it? I mean, you paid a guy $230 million guaranteed money here. I mean, isn't rent due?
It's gonna be a top. It's what. Look, I always come back to it's one game, but hey, Vic Fangio better get it done, right?
I think they're in trouble. I don't think they win that first game. I don't. But Jace, the Browns, check it out. So you make a move for Tyler Huntley, you trade for Jameis Winston. Do you like your guy you gave $250 million to? I mean,
well, he's hurt. He's hurt. He's not.
Well, no, it's reported that he started throwing today just to be.
He's still hurt. He's still here. I always go back to this. Look, I'm going to go back to this with DeShaun Watson. What I've always been uncomfortable with about DeShaun Watson and Cleveland in this marriage. And the current state of affairs is he's hurt. But if you backtrack it to this, he only went there because they said, "We'll guarantee the whole thing."
Right.
Right.
They bribed him.
Right. He never wanted to be there. He wanted to go home to Atlanta. And he said to Atlanta, "Guarantee the whole thing." And they're like, "No, we're not doing that." Right. And instead of, "Okay, you don't want to guarantee the whole thing, I'm going there anyways, and I'm going to show you." It was, "All right, I guess I'm going to Cleveland." It's not his place. It's not where he wants to be. It's not where he's comfortable. It's not this. And I'm not even talking about all the off-field stuff. And it's not what he wanted in his life. So there's never this level of true satisfaction for a guy like that when he had the opportunity to go home. It's not like Atlanta wasn't looking. Atlanta was looking. They were willing to take him.
Carolina too.
Right?
Carolina too. I mean, because Kyle's
right. I mean, both of them were willing to take him at a certain price. They just weren't willing to take this price. And it's like, look, at a certain point, you got to enjoy what you're doing and why you're doing it and all those other things. There has to be importance to it. And if you're just living in a place that you don't like and you're not completely in, you're just not into it. And I know that there's $200 million to be into it and all that kind of other stuff that we talk about and everything else. But it's like, I just don't think he was really that happy. And if you're not happy in a place,
Jace,
it ain't going to work.
That is going to lead me to something that I'm going to go off the reservation on. You tell me if you have to pull me back in here. I just wonder if all that, and I'm not a judge or I'm not playing one here. I just wonder if all that off the field stuff made him less invested in what he was doing because when he was in Houston, he was electric. When I'm watching him now, it almost comes off as disinterested at times. Right. And it just, you got your money. People are going to have their opinions of you no matter what. He's probably a sensitive guy. Every NFL guy I've ever known, including yours truly, is a sensitive person when it comes to criticism. Of course. And you're like, I don't know, man. I think that took more out of his mental game than what people are saying.
Yeah. I absolutely.
Not everybody's a tough guy, Jace.
Well, he was humiliated publicly. His. I mean, and he bought that. That's his
I
fault.
got it.
That's that's
I
he put
got it.
himself out there. He bought it.
No,
Okay,
it's his.
right. It's like there's very few guys who overcome that, right? And he did, and he hasn't. And
Mike
I think
Tyson couldn't when he came out of jail. He got beat up every fight he fought in.
right.
I mean,
It's,
when you see,
you're
look at Tiger. Tiger kind of rolled back, but not really. When you had mental things in your life that take you off the ball, Jason, it's
right.
hard to get back on that horse again, in my opinion. Listen, and I am not making excuses. People are going, "Hey, Sills, give me 230. I'll show you what it takes to." I get it. I'm not saying, but not everybody's a tough guy who gets up in the morning and goes and puts sheetrock on a house. You know what I mean? Not everybody's that guy.
Not, and even the guys who are putting sheetrock up, they're not always that guy either. They're not showing up for
Right.
work feeling it every single day either. But like I get it, and this is why you know he was the guy was in Houston, had his life all set up, got humiliated in Houston, got dragged around, having to be stuck on that team for a year not playing, then being suspended and not playing, and then all like it all comes around to man, I can't even go back to Atlanta. He should have just gone back to Atlanta. He should
Yeah.
have just said because that would have put the pressure on him that he needed to sit up and go, you know what? I got to earn this contract and I got to get back to playing my kind of game. And
Because those Browns fans are like Eagle fans and Bills fans. They're not going to sit there and feel sorry for you. They want you to go in there and win ball games. They're not going to sit there and pat you on the head here. That's a stiff fan base in that area.
well, Atlanta's gonna be the same thing too. I mean, they weren't gonna, like
But it's more
everything was
friendlier because it's his home grounds.
right, but it still would have been, hey, look, you better win. At a certain point.
I
At
get
a
it.
certain point. But the bottom line is like I, I see a guy he's not into it.
That's what I'm.
He's not.
I
He's just
see him
he's not
kind
into
of
it.
get engaged, but then an injury here, and it's like I'm out, and you're like, all right. I mean, I'm not saying you have to be a tough guy. I'm not questioning you, but I am because I'm questioning your decision making because of what you did off the field anyway. Why wouldn't I question this? You see what I'm saying?
There's this goes back to
I question his toughness, Jason, because I question your decision making in life.
I'm not sure it's necessarily toughness, but it can be said that way. But I will always go back to something Nick Saban once said to me that rang true. And we were talking about some linebacker, I think it was coming out of Alabama at one point. This is before he went back to Alabama. This guy who had gotten in trouble in Alabama a bunch of times and was going through the supplemental draft, right? And we're talking about him. I was like, "Hey, this guy's really talented." He goes, "Yeah, but you always wonder about guys who they let something get in the way of playing football. Like,
That's
if you
right.
really truly love to play football,
And that's why
you
Brady
don't."
lost his wife. You don't let your Jason, what I try to explain to people, it's your first true love. I don't care what players say. You love your kid, you love your wife, you love that, and you grow to love it even more when you leave the game. But when you're in the game, the passion you have for the game, Michael Jordan, divorced, Tiger Woods, divorced, Ali, numerous relationships. When you're people like that, you sacrifice the ones around you because you have a true love of the game.
Yeah,
It's just what it is.
right. There are very few guys who keep it together, and I'm just
Like
saying that.
Nicholas put it all together. Took his kids to like the McDonald's after he won a US Open. That's where they celebrated. I mean,
Right.
very few people are like that were able to have both lives like that. It's hard, man.
I'm just saying that at a certain point, DeShaun Watson let other
Yes,
things get in the way of loving football, and
it
it's
shows.
sad. He chose something, and it overwhelmed him, and it's probably shot his interest in it. And it's too bad because he's a sensational player,
Yep.
but he hasn't been the same since. And
Absolutely. Get
I
that.
hope, I hope he
It
gets it
hasn't
back.
been the same since that situation. That just shows you this is more mental than a physical thing with him, in my opinion. And like you said, he hates playing there. The situation and all of that. He's homesick. And this thing has been a train wreck for both. It's just, again, like you said, you're watching a meltdown.
Yeah, you're watching it. It's
And the Browns know it, and that's why they went and got all these quarterbacks.
yeah. That's why I always, you always wonder about guys how they handle situations, and whether they're just happy doing what they do. It's I go back to Jim Kelly. As much as he's loved in Buffalo, there's that great quote. He's like, "I didn't want to get drafted by the Bills."
Shit, he never wanted to leave the USFL in Houston.
Right. He had a great deal going. Right, but eventually had to go. He had the difference for a guy like Jim Kelly is he had no choice at a certain point. But if I'm going to play football, I got to go play in Buffalo, and I'm going to make the best of this. In the case of DeShaun Watson, he had a choice to go back to Atlanta. He chose the money over something that he loved. And when you choose the money over something that you love, you're choosing money over passion. And if you're choosing something over passion, you're not fully invested in it. And that will sometimes get in the way of whether you're great at something or not.
What do you think will go down as the worst trade in NFL history? The Russell Wilson trade to Denver or the Deshaun Watson deal from Houston to Cleveland?
Well, I mean, is Herschel Walker still in there?
You know,
It's a pretty bad trade.
it's a lot of money though, and it's a lot of draft picks on both ends.
I understand, but Herschel Walker's a lot of draft picks too.
I got it, but the money wasn't like this money. I mean, this is significant.
They're collectively
huge
they're
money
bad.
here.
There's Ricky Williams trade. There's the New Orleans trade in its entire draft for Ricky Williams. There's a bunch of bad ones, but I would say the Deshaun Watson trade. It's up there as one of the worst of all time. No
this is the year, right? Where if it don't happen, it's never happening. Like, look at the people around him.
Although I'll say this: do you really believe Jameis Winston is an answer?
No.
Speaking of guys who
that just shows you when you're bringing people like that in. I love Tyler Huntley, by the way.
He's a tough kid. He's a tough kid. He doesn't have enough ability, but I like the way that he plays, how hard he plays. But look, Jameis Winston's there's another example of a guy.
He's a he's a better version of who's that Raider guy they took the first overall pick?
Demarcus
Russell.
Oh, he's better than that. I mean,
Demarcus Russell.
Demarcus never really had even a career. But I mean, my point with Jameis Winston is always, and I get this, like when you were talking about all the stuff that he did in college, the crab legs, the screaming obscenities, the involvement with the girl, whether it was rape or not rape, whatever way you want to talk. It's like, okay, if you have one incident in college where you get into trouble over something, I understand things happen, right? But when you continually have incident after incident, that's where I sit there and go, are you focused on what it takes to do what it is that you want to do? Do you love the act of being quarterback so much that you're like saying, I'm not bothering with all that.
Yeah.
I'm done with that. Okay. I got in trouble with a girl. My bad. Never happen again. I'm not going to Publix and walking out with crab legs. I don't need to. I don't need to do that. I don't need to scream obscenities in the cafeteria to just bring attention to myself to have a little fun. I don't need to do that. I already got in trouble one time, and it nearly cost me my college career. It nearly cost me the thing that I love the most. I'm not doing that anymore, right? He didn't do that. And so that's why you sit there and go, this is not a guy who ended up getting the most out of himself because he wasn't fully invested in it from the start. And that's the thing that teams, as we go into the draft, This is the most important question that teams have to answer. And it's the hardest one to answer. Is a guy invested in wanting to play a sport that is the toughest physical sport to play? It is going to test you every single day because it is a sport of misery.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Two last questions for you. What happened in Chicago with Justin Fields?
Nothing. I mean, they don't know how to develop quarterbacks. They, went through a couple of different guys, and as good an athlete as he is, like he wasn't trained to be a professional quarterback. Ohio State didn't train him to be a pro quarterback. That's not their job. Okay, they trained him to work in their system, and he's not a guy who learned to go through progressions and all the other things that you have to do. He's not. He's not trained for the job yet. Will he become trained for the job? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe he will not be able to see receivers. I mean, it's the same thing. His rookie year, I remember
I
there
don't
was a
think he'll be
blitz.
better than Tyrod Taylor.
Maybe not, but he's got physical ability where if you're a team, you say, I want to take a chance. It's like Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill was not naturally a quarterback when he came into the NFL. He did just enough in the right kind of system to become a competitive quarterback, right? When he
Yep.
got to a different place. It's Rich Gannon. Rich Gannon was not naturally a quarterback when he came into the NFL. It took years and years and years and years for him to finally kind of get it. And then he had an apex of his career in his 30s. Could Justin Fields do something like that? And maybe even better because he's a better athlete than either one of those guys? Maybe. But
You mean
he's
like
not
Geno?
there.
Do something
What?
like Geno Smith, where later on in his career, he has a couple blimp years on his resume where you go, hey,
Sure.
like
Yeah.
something like that.
Right. I mean, but he hasn't been trained to recognize blitzes or, early in his career. He couldn't recognize a blitz coming at him in a preseason game. He didn't see it and didn't know, okay, here's the hot. He got killed on that play. And teams figure that out and say, okay, you can't do this. And then they attack him. Then he finds an answer to that. He runs all over the place. And they're, okay, well, we can't let him run all over the place. And so we'll take that away from him and we'll force him to do normal throws. And he's just okay at that right now. He's got to get better at reading. He's got to get better at being accurate with the ball. But man, there's all the ability in the world. Some guys it takes a while to get there. And again, that's why I go back to guys like Gannon, a guy like Tannehill, a guy like Geno Smith. Sometimes it just takes a long time.
You bring that up. I'm going to close with this question. For the Steelers to give up on Kenny Pickett for as fast as they did, an organization that doesn't quit on anything, look at their head coaches. I mean, like I've told you before, there's 3 since 69. I mean, very few general managers. They believe in player development. They love to reinvest in their own draft choices. For them to move off of him that fast, is this more about getting, like you said earlier, Jason, this was more about Mike Tomlin and making sure Tomlin has the ability to win more games and get him back into a Super Bowl instead of just towing the line like they always do as an organization and moving off of him?
No, I think Pickett did this to himself more than anything else.
Oh, because he bitched about going to the backup role? Steelers aren't going to tolerate that kind of talk.
Mason,
you and I know the Roonies. That's not going to go well.
Right.
That's you could be a Steeler for life if you do they still serve fish on Fridays. Correct. Okay. I mean, these people are they're really good folks. I mean, that's a great organization. You get drafted as Steelers, no matter what the round is, there's a chance you're making the team.
The issue here was twofold. Didn't take the backup role. Did the whole I didn't learn anything from Mason Rudolph comment. just stupid thing to say. Let his ego get in the way. And most of all, it's like, look, I know that George Pickens is a pain in the ass. It doesn't take a whole lot of phone calls to people from Georgia to find that George Pickens is a complete pain in the ass. But you got to throw the ball to him. Okay? If he doesn't run hard, he doesn't catch it, the team will notice and the team will figure out how to deal with George Pickens. But you, as the quarterback, you got to throw on the ball and just say to those guys, he ain't running hard on routes. You can't choose to shut him out when you're still trying to figure out if you're any good. You ain't Dan Marino who can send a message. You're not Tom Brady who can send a message to a player going, hey, you either run it out hard or I'm not throwing the ball to you. You don't have that kind of cachet of respect as Kenny Pickett. So you don't get to do that stuff. You run the plays, you throw the ball to the guy you get, and if he doesn't catch the ball, if he doesn't work hard for it, it's on him. But you weren't that guy. Not yet. And Kenny Pickett tried to be that guy, and he came off as a child.
Yeah.
That's on Kenny Pickett.
Absolutely. Jason, great stuff, man. There's a lot going on in the league as they dominate the front pages of the sports page always. Thank you so much, brother, for your time, and I meant that in my text to you, man. Thank you so much. I really
anytime. Dude.
Thank you so much, my friend.
Anytime. Be good.
You got it. That's our friend Jason Cole. Please hit the like button. Don't forget, this is very important. I'm looking for a select group of people. Now, somebody suggested we do 1,000. We're gonna put this down at 500 here. March Madness, as everybody knows, is one of the most bet on events in America next to the Super Bowl. JAKIB Sports and myself, we are looking for a select 500 people of our loyal viewers and subscribers to sign up with our great partner, Underdog Fantasy. Simple. This is not any, by the way, you put $10 in, that's the minimum. If you put $10 in, they're going to give you $10, so you're not really putting anything in. Everything you match all the way up until $100, okay? They're going to match it. So you're really not, you're just signing up. So like you could bail out of it and still make money on this thing here. Simple. All you have to do, everything you invest, you're getting our great partner here, Underdog Fantasy, to match it. So it's just really signing up. I see you, I'm awake. Are you 1,000? I don't know. So we're going to do it with 500 people. If the minimum is $10, they'll match it with 10, so you get 20 going into it. Now, remember, you have to use the promo code. That's WIN, W-I-N. That's W-I-N. I'm going to play along with you during the NC2A tournament. This is going to be absolutely fantastic. And again, a select few of our subscribers and viewers, sign up now. You have to use the promo code WIN. Hit the like button. Don't forget also, at 5 o'clock-ish, we're going to talk to the former Super Bowl MVP and New York Giant. That's going to be O.J. Anderson. Hit the like button. Keep it here, National Football Show.
Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports, and certainly the easiest when you're watching the NBA. And the NBA playoffs are almost here, and you can win money making picks. What are you waiting for? Sign up on UnderdogFantasy.com and use the promo code WIN. An Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN. Get ready for the NBA and get ready for the NBA playoffs. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.